For decades, the public was taught Saddam Hussein was America's ultimate enemy. But before he was a target, he was an ally. Saddam was an intentionally cultivated intelligence asset installed to serve a specific Western purpose until he outlived his usefulness. Superpowers maintain regional control through a four-step strategy. They install a strongman, exploit his ambitions, bankrupt his economy, and then move in for the final liquidation. The modern volatility of the Middle East and the surge of global terrorism trace back to the deliberate execution of this four-step strategy. Step 1 starts with structural instability. After World War I, the British carved up the remnants of the Ottoman Empire. They drew new borders that forced violently opposed rival factions into a single artificial nation called Iraq. To manage this friction, the West installed a weak puppet monarchy. At one point, the official ruler of the country was a 4-year-old boy sitting on his uncle's lap. By the Cold War, the CIA needed a local enforcer to block Soviet expansion and counter the new Islamic Republic in Iran. They threw their support behind a rising political faction, the Ba'ath Party. Within that party, they backed a ruthless intelligence chief with a reputation for brutality. With Western support, Saddam Hussein took total control of the country. This completes the first step. Superpowers prioritize regional control over democratic stability, setting a violent stage for future conflict.
Step 2 is the proxy war. In 1980, Saddam invaded Iran. The United States quietly supplied diplomatic cover, weapons, and funding to sustain the assault. That war dragged on for 8 years. Millions died. Iraq technically pushed Iran back, but the conflict bankrupted Saddam, leaving him owing $80 billion to his neighbors.
This triggers Step 3, the trap. When Saddam asked Kuwait to forgive his war debt, Kuwait flatly refused. Saddam accused Kuwait of siphoning his remaining wealth. He claimed they were slant drilling, placing rigs on their side of the border but angling underground to drain Iraqi oil reservoirs. Emboldened by American diplomatic silence, Kuwait kept pumping. Saddam invaded, triggering an immediate U.S.-led retaliation that devastated the region's infrastructure. But the U.S. coalition stopped short of Baghdad. They left Saddam in power to act as a buffer against Iran. The West stripped their former asset of his military power and imposed crippling sanctions, leaving him bankrupt, isolated, and contained for the final phase. By 2003, the U.S. economy required control over tangible wealth like oil and gold. Iraq, weakened by 2 decades of war, was the primary target. They used the ultimate pretext, accusing Iraq of harboring weapons of mass destruction. Despite a complete lack of evidence, the invasion began with a massive bombardment that decimated the Iraqi state. In a matter of months, Saddam was captured, the regime was dismantled, and U.S. companies took control of Iraqi oil reserves. A puppet government held a theatrical trial and executed Saddam on a major religious holiday, an act designed to incite sectarian division.
Step 4 completes the cycle, the total liquidation of a sovereign nation's leadership and wealth for superpower profit. While the strategy secured immense wealth for Western contractors, it left Iraq in ruins. During the occupation, coalition forces subjected prisoners to systematic torture. At Abu Ghraib, 1 lakh people were killed, over 1 crore were injured, and millions more were forcibly driven from their homes. When you dismantle a state and brutalize its people, the borders dissolve into a power vacuum fueled by sheer rage. The survivors of this chaos had nothing left to lose. Local insurgencies formed in the rubble, spilling across borders and becoming global threats like ISIS. This instability creates a monopoly. The West sets the rules of the conflict and then examines the results. If you need protection from the very terrorism this chaos birthed, you must buy your weapons, your technology, and your security from the exact same superpowers that started the cycle. This creates a self-sustaining economic loop. The war on terror generates trillions in defense spending, paid for by the resources and the blood of the nations whose maps the West continues to redraw.